Hello, pre-algebra students. Mr. Rivers here. Let's go through your study guide. Before we do, though, let's talk about some things you can do to prepare for your test. The first thing is think about what we do every day in class and at home. We work problems, right? So uh, take a look at your homework assignments. You have all those keys, but you should be checking them along the way as well. So anything you've gotten incorrect from the homework, go back, check over the homework. If there's anything that gave you a hard time, review it. If there's anything you got right, review it as well. Anything you got wrong, I would recommend you erase it and rework it and then check the key to see if you get it right. That would mean that you improved, right? If you didn't know it before but now you know it, that's improvement. And if you got it wrong a second time, uh, check the key and see if you can't figure out where you're going wrong on that. We took one quiz this chapter, so make sure you review your quiz and you know all the information on there. And then, of course, this study guide and this video. So let's go through the study guide now and talk about how each of these problems should be done. The key is at the bottom, but perhaps you need a little extra guidance, and the key is not getting it done for you. So here we go. Number one, the absolute value of -4. It's negative, the absolute value of -4, or you could say the opposite of the absolute value of -4. Remember, we're going to take the absolute value first. What's the absolute value of -4? It is +4. And then we apply what is outside the absolute value sign, which is, in this case, a negative sign. So -4 is the answer to number one there. All right, on number two, we have some operations. Let's take the absolute value first. Remember, treat absolute value almost like parentheses. If there's any operations to be done inside the absolute value, do that first. If there's an absolute value to be taken, do that as well before you do anything outside the absolute value. So it's going to be 2 plus, what's the absolute value of -9? What is the distance -9 is from 0? -9 is 9 units away from 0. So 2 plus 9, we get 11. 11 on number 2. Number 3, same idea. We take the absolute value before we perform the operation. So the absolute value of -5 is 5 minus, what's the absolute value of 10? It's 10. Okay, 5 minus 10. This is like 5 plus -10. 5 minus 10 and 5 plus -10, those are the same thing. Which number is further from 0, -10 or 5? -10 is further away, so we know this is going to be negative. How far is 10 from 5? They're 5 units apart, so -5 is what we get there. Number 4, the absolute value of 13. I'm going to change colors here. The absolute value of 13 plus the absolute value of -6, that's going to be 13, plus, what's the absolute value of -6? 6. 13 plus 6, we get 19. 19 on number 4. Number 5, the absolute value of -7 minus the absolute value of -8. What's the absolute value of -7? 7 minus, what's the absolute value of -8? 8. Okay, 7 minus 8, this is like 7 plus -8. Which number is further from 0, 7 or -8? -8 is further from 0, so we know this has to be negative. How far apart is 7 and 8? They're 1 unit apart, so -1 is what we get for 7 minus 8. Number 6, we're going to perform the operation inside the absolute value first, then we're going to take the absolute value. So the absolute value of, what is 9 minus 17? Well, 9 minus 17 is like 9 plus -17. 9 plus -17. Which number is further from 0, -17 or 9? -17 is, right? So we know it's going to be negative. How far is 9 from 17? They are 8 units apart. So this is the absolute value of -8. One more time. What do we do here? We perform the operation inside the absolute value first, just like their parentheses. Perform the operation inside the absolute value first. Then we take the absolute value. So 9 minus 17, this is like 9 plus -17. -17 is further from 0 than 9. How far is 9 from 17? They're 8 units apart, so that's -8. And then what's the absolute value of negative 8? It is 8. Very good. Let's take a look at the last one in this set here. 3 multiplied by the absolute value of negative 2 plus the absolute value of 4. Take the absolute value first. 3 gets copied down, multiplied by, what's the absolute value of negative 2? 2 plus, what's the absolute value of 4? 4. We have multiplication, we have addition. What are we going to do first? Multiply. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 4 gets copied down. 6 plus 4 is 10. So we get 10 there. Evaluate each expression if e equals negative 2, f equals negative 6, and g equals negative 8. Okay. On the first one, that negative sign stays there. What is e? E is negative 2. You might be looking at it and say, well, why is that negative sign up front? It's already negative 2. We already have a negative there. Remember, this is like the opposite of e. What is the opposite of e? It is, in this case, negative 2. Multiply by f. What is f? It's negative 6. Multiply by g. What is g? It's negative 8. Okay. Let's take a look at each of these piece by piece. I'm going to copy down the negative and the negative 2. What is negative 6 times negative 8? That is positive 48. Positive 48. A negative multiplied by a negative is a positive. I'm going to keep that negative out front. What is negative 2 times positive 48? All right. Well, a negative times a positive is going to be a negative, right? 2 times 48, well, what's 2 times 50? 2 times 50 is 100, so we're 2 short of that, and we're doubling it, so we're going to be 4 short of 100. So this is negative 96. Another way to think of this is 40 times 2 is 80. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 80, 96. There you go. All right, now the opposite of negative 96. What's the opposite of negative 96? It's 96. 96 what we get there. Remember the rule of thumb. If you're only multiplying, you can count the number of negative signs you have, and that tells you what the sign's going to be. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 negative signs. If we have an even number of negative signs, that'd be 0 negative signs, 2 negative signs, 4 negative signs, 6 negative signs, etc. If we have an even number of negative signs, then our product is going to be positive, like we have here. Be sure to check yourself that way. If we have an odd number of negative signs, like if we have 1, 3, 5, 7, then our product is going to be negative. Okay, so positive 96 is what we get there. Let's move on to number 9. Let me erase this. Number 9, f multiplied by g divided by e. All right, so it's going to be f, which is negative 6, multiplied by g. G is negative 8. Divided by e, which is negative 8. Okay, remember there's implied parentheses in the numerator and the denominator. There's no operations in the denominator, so that doesn't really affect us. Let's work out what's in the numerator first. A negative multiplied by a negative is going to be a positive. 6 multiplied by 8 is 48. So we get 48 divided by negative 8. What is a positive divided by a negative? That is a negative. What is 48 divided by 8? 6. So we get negative 6 on number 9. Number 10. 2 multiplied by e, which is negative 2, minus f. F is negative 6. Mr. Rivers, why did you put negative 6? Well, we're subtracting f. So we're subtracting negative 6. That is why I did that. Let's follow our order of operations. A positive, we got multiplication right here, right? And we have subtraction. So we're going to work with the multiplication first. 2 multiplied by negative 2 gives us negative 4 minus negative 6. Okay. When we subtract a negative, what do we have to do? So the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. This is the same thing as negative 4 plus 6. What number is further from 0? Negative 4 or positive 6? Positive 6 is. So we know this sum is going to be positive. How far apart are 6 and 4? They are 2 apart. So there we go, 2. Number 11. Let me change this to blue. Number 11. This is the absolute value of g, which is negative 8, plus the absolute value of f, which is negative 6. The absolute value of negative 8 is 8, plus the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. 8 plus 6 is 14. 14 there on 11. Take the absolute value first. We got a lot going on in this one. I might have to clear some space. We'll see. 4 times e. That's going to be 4 times, what is e? E is negative 2. Plus 2 multiplied by g. What is g? Negative 8. Plus 3 times f. 3 multiplied by negative 6. Okay. Do you see how I'm showing my substitution? On the test, I need you to show your substitution as well. So we have multiplication, addition, multiplication, addition, multiplication. We're going to work the multiplication prior to the addition. So that looks like this. 4 multiplied by negative 2. That's a positive multiplied by a negative. So we know it's going to be negative. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus. Well, we'll hold off on that plus for a second. 2 multiplied by negative 8. A positive multiplied by a negative is going to be a negative. So you could either write plus a negative, or you could just write subtraction. I'm going to write just subtraction. What's 2 times 8? 16, right? So this is the same thing as plus negative 16, minus 16, plus 16, plus, back up. Plus negative 16 and minus 16 are the same thing. So either this or plus negative 16, either way. Over here, same idea. A positive 3 multiplied by a negative, negative 6. A positive multiplied by a negative is going to be a negative. So again, you can just write subtraction, or you can write plus a negative. Either way, I'm going to write subtraction. 3 times 6 is 18. There we go. So now let's work this left to right. Negative 8 minus 16. This is like negative 8 plus negative 16. Negative 8 minus 16, this is negative 24. Remember, negative 8 plus negative 16, just like positive 8 plus 16. So 8 plus 16 is 24. This is the same idea, except for it's going to be the exact opposite sign. Carry down the minus 18. Okay. Again, negative 24. This is the same thing as plus negative 18. That's the same thing as 24 plus 18, except for the signs are going to be completely flipped. What's 24 plus 18? It's 42. Well, this is going to then be negative 42. So negative 42 there on number 12. So let me clear some space here. Negative 42. Make sure you do show your work for that. All right, solve each equation. M is equal to 3 plus negative 11. Well, what's 3 plus negative 11? Which number is further from 0? Negative 11 is, so we know that's going to be negative. How far is 11 from 3? They are 8 apart. Plus negative 5. We have a negative plus a negative, which is going to be negative. It's the same thing as 8 plus 5. What's 8 plus 5? It's 13, except for the signs are different. So it's negative 13. Oh, we should write equals m. Equals m. There we go. Boom. I won't count off if you don't put the variable in there, but it's a good habit to be in where you write the variable equals whatever your answer is, whatever your solution is. Number 14 here, we have a positive 16 plus a negative, negative 6. Which number is further from 0? Positive 16 or negative 6? positive 16 is, so we know that's going to be positive. How far is 16 from 6? They are 10 apart. Or you could say what 16 minus 6, that's 10 either way. The plus 5 gets copied down. What's 10 plus 5? 15, and that's equal to A. There we go. R equals negative 12 minus negative 18. Well, when we subtract a negative right here, negative or minus negative 18, that's going to be negative 12 plus 18, right? So now looking at negative 12 plus 18, which number is further from 0, negative 12 or 18? 18 is. It's positive, which means this sum has to be positive. How far is 12 from 18? They are 6 apart. So 6 equals R. Number 16. I equals negative 28 minus 19. Perhaps you can look at this and you can tell what it is. It's the same thing as negative 28 plus negative 19. You don't have to show this. I'm just showing it to talk about how you can think about this problem. This is the same thing as 28 plus 18. 28 plus 19, I should say. 28 plus 19, except for a negative plus a negative has to be a negative. It's the same thing as 28 plus 19, except for the sign is the opposite. So what's 28 plus 19? Well, 28 plus 20 is 48. We're one short of that, so 47 equals I. I'm going to change the color of my pen. S equals 72 plus negative 111. Okay, which one's further from 0, 72 or negative 111? Negative 111 is, so that's going to be negative. How far is 111 from 72? In other words, what's 111 minus 72? Okay, well, we got to borrow, right? So that's going to become 0. Hang on one second. Scratch that. That's going to become 11. 11 minus 2 is 9. We're going to borrow again. 10 minus 7 is 3. So we get 39. So negative 39 is equal to S. Again, how did we do that? Which number is further from 0? Negative 111 is, so we know that sum has to be negative. How far is 111 from 72? So we can subtract 111 minus 72 and we get 39. Right. 18. T equals negative 98 plus 233. Which number is further from 0? Positive 233. So we know this has to be positive. How far is 233 from 98? So again, 233 minus 98. Just subtract. That's all you have to do. Borrow 2. That becomes 13. 13 minus 8 is 5. Have to borrow again. That's 1. 12 minus 9 is 3. Bring down the 1. So we get 135. 135 equals T on that one. Again, what do we do on this one? Negative 98 plus 2 plus, back up. Negative 98 plus 233. Which number is further from 0? 233 is further from 0, so we know this sum is going to be positive. And then how far apart is 233 from 98? In other words, what's 233 minus 98? They're 135 apart. Plot each ordered pair on the graph, then name the quadrant in which the point lies. Now it might be on an axis as well. So we have quadrant 1 up here, quadrant 2 in the top left, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Those are your 4 quadrants. Let's get to graphing now. 7, 2. We're going to assume each of these squares is 1, right? So remember the x comes first and the y comes second. Okay, so 7, 2, that's going to be to the right 7. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then up to right there. There's our point. That's in quadrant 1. Negative 3, negative 5. That's to the left 3. 1, 2, 3, and then down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's right there. That's in quadrant 3. So quadrant 3. If you want to write like regular numbers for this, like if you wanted to write quadrant 3, I'd be okay with that. I'm going to use Roman numerals, but you don't have to. -1, -3. Okay, that's to the left 1 and down 3. 1, 2, 3. And this is the point -1, -3. That also is in quadrant 3. 4, 0. Okay, that's to the right 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going up and down 0, meaning we're right there. This is on the x-axis. This is not in a quadrant. This is on the x-axis. 6, -2. Okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the right, and then down 1, down 2. This is the point 6, -2. That's in quadrant 4. Again, the quadrants are quadrant 1 in the top right, and then we go to the left. Quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. Those are your 4 quadrants. 0, -4, that's going to be from the origin. We just go down 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is not in a quadrant. This is on the y-axis. Okay, so there you go. We had nothing in quadrant 2, but let's say we had, I don't know, this point right here. This is the point -1, -2, -3, and then up 2. So that's -3, and then up 2 is 2 for your y. So that point was not, you weren't asked to graph that, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like when a point is in the second quadrant. Simplify, okay. Let's use our rules for multiplication, addition, subtraction, and addition, and let's throw some variables into the mix too. Looking at number 20, -8a multiplied by -b. What's a negative times a negative? It's a positive, right? So it's 8 multiplied by a multiplied by b. 8ab. And then we're going to multiply this by 3c. What's a positive times a positive? It's a positive. What's 8 times 3? 24. A times b times c. Do you think the order matters of these? So if you have 24bca, is that okay? That is okay. Due to the commutative property, we can change up the order of multiplication. So if you don't have exactly 24 times a times b times c, that is okay. All right, number 21. D multiplied by 9d. All right, what's a positive multiplied by a positive? A positive. What number's in front of this d here? It's a 1, right? So 1 multiplied by 9 is 9. And d multiplied by itself. D multiplied by d, this is d squared, right? Just like 3 multiplied by 3 is 3 squared, which is 9. 5 multiplied by 5 is 5 squared, which is 25. We're going to rewrite d times d as d squared. So d squared. Multiply that by -1. What's positive 9 multiplied by -1? A positive multiplied by a negative is a negative 9d squared. There we go. Number 22. All right. Let's use our rules here to figure out what the sign of this is going to be. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. They're all being multiplied. If you have an even number of negatives, what's that sign going to be? It's going to be positive. So I'm not even going to worry about the signs because I know the product is going to be positive. What's 4 times 2? That's 8. What's 8 times 2? 16. What's 16 times 2? 32. Again, how did I do that? I mean, you could show all the work if you wanted to. I'm just showing you a shortcut for this. We know there's 4 negatives. They're all being multiplied, so you know that with an even number of negative signs, the product has to be positive. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. All right, here we have multiplication on 23, and we have division. Which one do we do first? We have to do the multiplication first because we're working at left to right. Multiplication and division are on the same level, so you work it left to right. 11 multiplied by -6, a positive times a negative is a negative. 11 times 6 is 66, divided by 3. A negative divided by a positive is going to be a negative. 66 divided by 3 is 22. 22, so negative 22 there. On number 24, we're going to use what property? The distributive property. So 4 multiplied by 5a is 20a. Okay, now there's two ways to think about this. Now you can say, well, there's subtraction, so I'm going to write subtraction next. And then I'm going to multiply. That's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is, what is 4 multiplied by negative 6? 4 multiplied by negative 6 is negative 24b. So you could write it like this, minus 24b, or you could write plus negative 24b. Either way, it's the same thing. I'm going to write it as minus 24b, but either we get full credit on your test. Can we combine the a term and the b term? The answer is no, these are not like terms. We cannot combine those. Number 25, negative 7x plus 8y. Can I combine negative 7x plus 8y? The answer is no. These have different variables, so I cannot combine them. Minus 9z, can I combine minus 9z with anything? The answer is no. These all have different variables, so we're going to write the word simplified. If you just wanted to write it down again, that would be okay. If you just wanted to box it like that, that would be okay. Just something to show me that you looked at it, you thought about it, and you recognize like there's nothing I can do to combine these. There you go. I think that is all. Thank you very much for your attention, and good luck on your test.